Guys, it's Boxing Gossip here. Hope everyone's doing well. Today I'm joined by my good friend Dave, who is the brains behind the Dave Champion YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out already, certainly go on to Dave's channel on YouTube, which is, as I say, Dave Champion, and hit the subscribe button there. And we're going to be talking all things boxing this evening. Dave, how you doing?
Good, how are you, Tom?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. Excited to discuss some of the fights, and I guess the obvious place to start, you know, it's Friday evening for me, Friday afternoon for you, and tomorrow we've got the WBC Heavyweight Championship of the World, Wilder versus Areola. What's your take on that one, mate?
Well, I think it's pretty tough to have any other take than the one that everyone has, and that's going to be easy work for Wilder. It's, I mean, Areola doesn't look good in a long time, and I just basically think he doesn't have much of a chance here against Wilder, and this is another cherry pick by Wilder in my eyes. Understood.
Yeah, do you give Wilder a bit of an allowance for this fight after the situation with Povetkin?
Yeah, I understand that, but it gets a little bit annoying with because that fight itself was he had a few allowances to draw that one out, and then it falls apart, and then again it's another soft touch. It seems the WBC is allowing a lot of this lately. Like Adonis Stevenson gets away with it a lot, and it just.
It's frustrating.
I mean, hey, we understand the guy's got to make some money and all that, but after that Stavern fight a few years ago, it was like we were really craving to see this guy in some real action, and now we're not getting that.
Yeah, do you know what? I was looking at Deontay Wilder on BoxRec the other day, and you know, a lot of the talk around Deontay Wilder is that he's got a terrible resume, and I think the reason behind that talk is because a lot of the fights he's been in haven't been hyped at the time. But I actually had a look back at his resume, and do you know what? A lot of the fighters he's beaten, to be fair to him, have gone on to win other decent fights. So I was having a look at this. You had Malik Scott, who he beat, and subsequently to that, Malik Scott's beaten Tony Thompson and Alex Leopai. Eric Molina, who's knocked out Adamek. Johan De Par, who's knocked out the undefeated Hellenius. And obviously Bermane Stiverne. So do you know what? At the time, the Molina and the De Par form wasn't too impressive, but now in hindsight, maybe it wasn't quite as bad as I guess a lot of people, including myself, initially thought.
Well, I didn't mind Molina, but it just seems like many years ago when I was a young man, you know, they would, you know, guys like that would be the one soft defense they would take in between the big fights. It just seemed like these fighters got to a certain level, then they stayed at the very top, and now they're not really. They don't really do that anymore. They go to the very top to win their title, and then they go down to that top 20, 25 level of opponent and just sit there and maintain their belt. And that happens in all the weight divisions.
Absolutely. I mean, you'd have to hope in...
I didn't think the Molina fight was that bad. Molina was a guy that I always sort of had an eye on as a big puncher. Although he does sort of look... maybe not the top class when he stands there in the ring, but I think there's a little more quality to him.
Yeah, he the problem with Molina at the time for me is, you know, you're up against Deontay Wilder, who's known as one of the biggest punchers in the sport, and you've been knocked out. I mean, he got knocked out, what was it, in a round or two by Chris Areola, and I guess that for me made me question what sort of fight this actually was going into it.
Yeah, sure, but I find the other two, Spilka and Duhaupas, they seemed like very limited compared to Wilder. Like it was just noticeable that, you know, they could hardly do anything effective, and he was just having his way with them. And it was like, you know, I understand Duhaupas came back to beat Hellenius, and that was a good win. But I mean, Hellenius is not Deontay Wilder, right? No, it's funny you say that. Actually, I actually thought. It's interesting. De Par and Spilka, neither of them have the power of a Deontay Wilder or even an Eric Molina or a Bermane Stiverne. But I actually thought, from a sort of pure boxing standpoint, taking power out of it,
Spilka's sort of slick southpaw stance and possibly Johan de Par's jab actually gave Wilder some problems, but I would grant that they were so, they didn't have the power and the snap to affect him in that sense.
Yeah, they just didn't. They just weren't of his class at all. Like, I thought it was clearly noticeable in the ring, and you knew it was just a matter of time. I mean, Duopa, he was actually taking a beating of a lifetime in there. He just happened to have a great chin and was able to withstand it.
Yeah, absolutely. How, if you look ahead to 2017, if you could pick one of the other champions for Deontay Wilder to potentially unify with, from a perspective from across the pond, who do you believe what do you believe is the most interesting fight for Deontay Wilder to be in?
Oh, you know what? Both of those fights would be great fights to unify with either Fury or Joshua. They'd both be intriguing in their own way.
Yeah. I guess Joshua brings that sort of power dynamic, whereas Fury is, even though he's a more sort of technically minded boxer, he's got the big personality outside of the ring. That.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine the build up to that fight?
Yeah.
But I think Fury's a good boxer too.
Oh yeah.
I know I've been critical of him in the past, but I'm more critical of him for stuff like being badly out of shape. You know, obviously this latest thing of getting injured under questionable circumstances and all that.
I can see that. He certainly isn't always living the life of a champion outside the ring. I mean, that's probably an understatement, as you say. But I do think Deontay Wilder's a fighter who has improved a lot. You know, if you look at his performances in the ring now compared to what he was offering up 2 years ago, the guy really has added a lot to his armoury. You know, he's making less mistakes. He's fighting in a more versatile manner, and his improvement has impressed me.
He moves well. Yeah. His punches are very quick. They're very long. He can stay at range and get out of the way, but he also presses the action in a way that a lot of guys that fight with that style don't.
Yeah, it's the defence that's my concern, though, Dave. I think he is very average defensively, and I think when he faces one of the other champions, he could get found out there. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, it's possible. I wouldn't imagine they would have to be so careful matching him if there wasn't at least a little nugget of truth to that.
Yeah.
That's always been the charge from the fans, right? That, he basically doesn't have a chin, or, his defense is suspect and somebody's going to find him out.
Yeah, if you look at a lot of the people on the forums and, that sort of conversation, they absolutely tear into him on his chin. And it is true he was stopped in the amateurs and he's been dropped in the pros. But do you know what? I give him respect for his chin. We've seen him up against Bermain Stavern, Eric Molina, other guys who can punch a little bit. And as he stepped up in class, his chin seems to have done okay. But it's not the chin that's the worry for me. He's so upright, he's got no head movement, and he steps back in a straight line, and he neglects to put his hands up, and
he keeps his hands down a lot too.
Yeah, and someone like Tyson Fury, I know he's not the biggest puncher in the world, but he's gonna find those gaps.
He knows how to capitalize off mistakes.
Yeah. So, what would be your pick for that fight then, if that was to happen?
You know what? I think that would be a very close pick-em fight. I'd probably pick Fury in that matchup, just based on the fact that his defense is much better. He seems to evade punches better.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean,
although I do think some of his his reach advantage that allowed him to beat Klitschko so easily would be negated by somebody as lanky as Wilder.
What's the size difference there? Isn't Fury isn't Wilder?
Wilder's about 6'7", I think, and
7, yeah.
I don't know. They always list the reach listings. I don't really usually pay much attention to that stat because some guys just tend to punch longer, and it doesn't usually have any correlation to how big the reach is. Yeah,
I mean that's got to be one of the most exciting fights in in world boxing, definitely, and it would be
Oh, sure. And Wilder versus Joshua, I think, would be a terrific fight also.
absolutely.
There'd be fireworks for sure in that one.
Yeah, and I mean Wilder's fought in the UK before. I wonder, it's not impossible he could come over here for a fight like that, because I could see it selling out Wembley Stadium here, and you know it could be a whole new level.